All right. Yay. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Wednesday night Zoom conversations with our neighbors. We have a great one tonight. We have Polly Mahoney and Annie Provenzano and friends. I see lots of you who are part of the Dippers crowd. It's really exciting to have everybody together in a group that's been doing this and to share some of the stories of what you've done. So I'll remind you to try to keep your cameras to mute. It's not camera, but the sound, put it on mute. That way I don't have to interrupt my recording to make you quiet. Well, you can put things in the chat, but at the end, Polly will and others will converse and take questions. So we'll give a little time for Polly to do her presentation. And just reminding you, next week will be all the history of the Tamworth Outing Club. So be sure to sign in to that one and hear about the Tamworth Outing Club. But I know these swimmers were, or dippers, I shouldn't call you swimmers. You got together today. Polly came in smelling like fresh water and campfire smoke. So I know she's got lots to say. So welcome, Polly. Thanks so much for doing this. And welcome to all of you tonight.
Thank you, Amy. Thank you for having all of us, and thanks to everybody else for being here tonight. I know that there are many of you who already have a practice of getting into the cold water, and perhaps some of you are here because you are interested in learning about what this is all about, and maybe there are some of you here who are just wondering how weird we all are. So hopefully we can do something to help all of you. So we're here to talk about the practice of cold water dipping, and it's also known as cold water exposure or cold exposure. And there's a lot of science to back up the benefits of the practice. It's not just something that people here in our area do. It has been and it is being researched and practiced very widely. And we may be able to speak to a little of that later if people have questions, but mainly we're here to primarily talk about our own personal experience with it. You know, some people take cold showers. Some do other ways of dunking, but for us, it began in the Swift River. Annie and I are neighbors, and we live right next to the river, and we spend a lot of time there in the summertime. But in the past, as summer gave way to fall, we would, you know, move off to the banks and appreciate it from there. But in the spring of 2020, as the pandemic began, we were all being asked to stay inside, or at least to stay away from others. And like many, I filled my need for connection by venturing out into the woods. And a lot of my time was spent just ranging around in the woods down by the river. And so that's how I found myself on an early spring day in 2020 in the 40-degree water. It was just a spontaneous decision, and I'm sure others have found themselves doing similar things when they are out hiking and find a beautiful stream that you just can't keep yourself out of. And that's the way it was for me on this early spring day. It was incredibly exhilarating, of course, but what I wasn't anticipating was that it was also going to be really thrilling and incredibly fulfilling in some way to just jump into this cold water. And when I got out of the water, I felt like it had actually done something for me. I didn't have any idea what, but I was surprised by how much I wanted to do it again. So of course I told Annie about it the next day. And of course, if you know Annie, you know she went in with me the next day. And of course, we hatched a plan that we would keep doing this every day for that month. So that's how it started. If you remember back to the winter of 2020, we had a lot of snow and it was kind of a long winter and there were still some little piles of snow around. So it sort of began as a dare to ourselves, just kind of like, can we do this? And we dipped willingly, but at the start, there really was a feeling of like protection and contraction. And like when we got in, we would kind of steel ourselves against the water. We would often scream and shout and then race out, and it was incredibly fun. But after a week or so of that approach, we figured out how to tolerate it a little bit. And we decided that we were interested in experimenting with more consciously kind of experiencing the water. So we wanted to try to relax into it. And while we were there, we wanted to see if it was something that we could become curious about and maybe even learn something from. So we began to extend our stays in the water from 30 seconds to a minute to 2 minutes to 3 minutes. And we began to work on calming ourselves. And we began to notice, to observe the surroundings and to just observe ourselves in the water and what was happening with us. We noticed many things. Of course, there was incredible beauty all around us. The water, this intimate connection with the water where you're not just looking at it, you're just in it. The sun and the riverbanks. And as the season was changing from early spring into later spring, every day was so different. And we were noticing all those little subtle changes. And this rich experience of the river, this being in the river with all of our senses attuned to it rather than looking at it, was just a totally different experience for us. We also noticed what was happening in our bodies so much more consciously. When we first started it, we had a story of how we thought the water would feel. And maybe you all have a similar story, that it's too cold. It's just kind of somehow wrong to be in it. And it's got to be unbearable. So as we actually spent time in the water, we found that story wasn't actually accurate. Our experience of how that water actually did feel was much more complex and interesting and subtle. As we began to experience what was actually happening, instead of this predetermined story of what was happening, we just noticed that the water was, sometimes tingly, sometimes hot. And sometimes we would sit in the water and it would be one thing for a while, and then it would change to another thing, and then it would change to another thing in our body. And the most amazing thing was we realized that the benefits of this practice of sitting in this water and being calm in this water, they didn't stay in the river. They actually kind of made their way out of the river and were integrated into our lives, which was kind of one of the most surprising things of all. We have this practice in the water of staying open and present in the face of this challenging thing, and noticing with our senses, being curious about what was going on in our bodies with accuracy and specificity, and allowing what was to just be as it is, and then allowing ourselves to be with it. And that just started weaving into our days. So there are, in addition to kind of that psychological benefit of being able to calm yourself in the face of a challenging circumstance, there are also many physical benefits, which we can talk about as well. Oh, thank you, Mary. But first, I just want to fast forward a little bit on Annie and my story, to say that while Annie and I were doing this, we were aware that there were people across the world who were using this practice to center themselves. We knew we weren't the only ones. Cold water exposure has been a tradition in many northern cultures for a long time. But during the pandemic, it was seeing huge growth. It is seeing huge growth. I was with our little dipping group today, and someone was saying just on NPR this morning, they heard a story about it. Individuals all over the world and groups all over the world have discovered that cold water has a power to regulate us. And it's very helpful in times of personal crises or just personal life or global crises. So as the summer of 2020 turned to the fall, and Annie and I continued dipping, and the fall got colder and colder, we just decided we would just keep it going. And we had an incredible winter. I don't know how many people say that about the winter of 2020, but it was just a winter of delight and just deepening of so many different things, and such a sense of connection, even in the midst of a time of, having to stay away. So as the fall of 2021 came around, we knew that we wanted to share this practice. So we put out the word on the Tamworth Exchange, inviting others who might be curious about this to join us in late October for a full moon swim in Lake Chicorowa. And like us, many of the people who came that first time just never looked back. We've got a group now who dips together several times a week, and we're always open to new folks who would like to try it. But before we take some questions or hear comments from those who are curious about this practice, I'd love to open this sharing up to anybody else who is dipping, whether you are dipping with us or dipping on your own. I know there are lots of people out there who do this. So we'd love to hear from you about what benefits, physical, psychological, spiritual, you're getting from this practice, and what it's like for you, and whatever insights you would like to share. So let's just open up for the dippers to speak about their experiences. And then after that, I've got a quick little slideshow to share with you, and then we'll open it up to the whole group so that people can ask questions of us. So feel free to jump in, dippers.
Well, if no one else is,
everybody.
go ahead.
Okay. I'm Annie. I love everything you just said, Polly. That's just so beautiful and so true. And I just also want to say that, we talked a little bit about, or Polly talked a little bit about how wonderful it is physically. And it's also just so, like, for me, it's just so meditative, like what we take what we feel in the river. Polly talked about taking it out into our lives. And for me, a lot of that is just about being in the present moment, and just when you get in the river and you sort of surrender to the water and you really go ahead and you're in there and you're sitting there and you're noticing, like, that is I feel like a skill that I've developed through doing this. Just stopping and feeling everything, my body, my emotions, my sight, taking it all in. And it's true that no matter when you're in that water, like you really can't be anywhere else. Like, your mind can't be wandering for a lot of reasons. It's just an amazing way to practice that skill of being present. So it's one of the many things I love about it.
I can say a little something. I know a lot of the people that I see on my screen here, and I think you probably know I'm a person of real moderation. I do everything moderately. Don't mean to, but I eat moderately. I don't do anything really fast or slow. And when Polly put this on the exchange, I just thought, that sounds like something fun, something different after I've been retired for a couple of years. And I have just loved it. The connection with the people that are in this group is a big part of it. But when we dip, and it's really dipping, not swimming, I know I tend to just hyperventilate. But then when you feel those calming breaths coming, you just appreciate that feeling and the sights and the sounds around you. And then when you start to warm up too, that's another just incredible feeling. And then we really have Annie and Polly to thank for letting us join them for this. So it's been awesome.
So down here in Eaton, we have a small group that many of you may know, with myself and Candace Marr, who's here, and our friend Marnie Cobbs too. And we have this connection with our Crystal Lake. So we're, long distance swimmers. We swim all summer. And then we sort of would, when the lake happened to be thawed on Christmas Day, we would jump in. And on a warm January day, we would jump in over the course of the past few years. And then last year, after our swimming year, we extended it just like you did, just kind of happened chance, and kept at it and did it into December, when the ice got so thick that we could no longer chop it. So it ended in December, and then of course we swam all summer, and we continued into the fall, and we're still going in almost every day. The lake is way too frozen, so Candace found a moving stream that part of aside from the amazing moment in the water, as I always say, the air temperature is really the main problem. The water is constant, right? Right now it's 32. And so that is in and of itself one thing. But right now our challenge is keeping the water open. So it's been a hoot to chop the ice. It's sort of like the same satisfaction of trundling a rock off of a cliff, that little kid excitement. So we chop the ice, and sometimes we come up with these enormous sheets of ice with great satisfaction and trying to keep it moving. And so today we were able to get it pretty open. And yeah, the water where we are is this gorgeous amber. It's just this golden, yellowy, beautiful water. And we're walking in from a stream that's pretty shallow to maybe belly button. I'm fairly short, so we have to then dunk to our shoulders, and that's that beautiful moment of just being in that chilling water. And so I'm sure, like you have a whole streamlined process of how you go about it, and then, like, as you're walking back to the car, that afterglow, just that amazing warmth and high that you get, which is just so fun. So anyway, it's been an evolving thing for me. Of course, Wim Hof, I've read all his books and do Wim Hof, and I'm Buteyko certified. So I'm into, the breathing in the water. And so anyway, it was kind of just happened that we've kept it going. And we heard about you guys that did it all winter. So that was really fun to know that you're down there doing that. So anyway, that's what we do down here in Eaton, up here in Eaton.
So for me, it's kind of a total experience. I started with Annie and Polly's group hesitantly in Shakaroa Lake in early fall, before the ice, and saw the ice, and I've done a lot of hiking, and I feel like people that are engaged in the outdoors have a certain level of engagement, of happiness, and this group swimming, the engagement and the happiness is like over the top. So I really enjoy this group, and I'm kind of satisfied with the level I've got to. It's really good to hear their meditative. They're meditating in the river. I don't know if I'll ever get there. I go in and I dunk twice and I'm out. That's what my body likes right now. So, but it's a total experience.
I started with Annie almost a year ago. I had, can you hear me? Okay, I heard that Annie was doing this dunking and emailed her, and she called me one day and said, I'm going, I've got about an hour. Do you want to come? And it was like, from saying, I want to join you sometime to, yes, I'll come right now. And it was just magical. That private spot down near Annie and Polly's house, the river, the one open hole that we could get into. And my family has always thought I was a little bit nuts in terms of swimming as early and as late as I could in Silver Lake, where I am. And this just seemed like a natural extension of that. So I continued with Annie and swam here at the lake. And in fact, a lot of the dippers came over here a few times in the fall until the lake froze. And it's just been an amazing experience, all the things that others have said. And as Ed implied, socially too. It's just been a great group of people to get to know better and feel part of this community of dippers.
I can talk for a minute. I'm Pam, one of the dippers. And I know for me, this is the first time I had learned it through Annie. Annie invited me, and I was just so hesitant about it. And we were out walking one day, and she's, do you mind if I dip? And I'm like, no, that's okay. And next thing I know, it all came off and I went in, and it was, I just couldn't believe myself that I did it. And God, what a sense of freedom. And, to reiterate what everybody has said, this group is so supportive. They're encouraging. For me, it's become such a sense of belonging. And I feel like I can be me. It's a no judgment zone. It's, there are days I have to jump in and jump right out. And some days I make it to 3 long breaths, and if that's what I can do, that's what I can do. And, it just, and what it does to you for the rest of the day, it just sets this incredible tone for the day. So I am beyond grateful for this whole dipping group, and to Annie for introducing you to me. So thank you. Thanks, everybody.
Hi, everybody. I'm Denise. I'm one of the dippers and have been dipping for about a year now. I joined Annie and Polly with their invitation last winter, and it has just become this weekly nourishment for my mind, body, and soul. I feel like there's the anticipation before, when I'm in my house, that starts early on. That gets excited about, okay, I'm getting all my stuff together and my towels and my neoprene booties, and I get in the car and I'm excited to see everybody. And when I get there, I feel like for me, it's such a lesson in relationships. It's a relationship to each other, a relationship to myself and what I'm capable of doing. It's a relationship to the environment, to the water and the ice, the elements, because could be snowing, or it could be sunny or cloudy or freezing cold. And it's a relationship to the rhythm of the earth, the movement and the sound of the water. Today, there was just like this symphony of gurgles that were going on, in this little ice space right by my head. And it was just wonderful. I feel like it's such a surrendering for me of just the ultimate letting go and just being open and receiving, like in the moment. And sometimes I feel really giddy, and sometimes I lose my breath. It's everything. It makes me feel so alive. I absolutely love it. It's a dream. It's wonderful. Love it.
Can you
And
guys describe your, what you're dipping in for me?
It has shifted from body to water, depending on what we can get into. We started in the Swift River and or in Chicorowa Lake rather, and then we would do some lake dips, some river dips. And well, I'll show you some pictures in a bit, but we tried to keep the ice open in Chicorowa as long as we could, but that was a losing battle. So Denise has a pond at her house. She was keeping a hole open there, and so we dipped there for a while. Then that became too difficult. So right now we're in the Swift. And there are several different holes that we can get into, nothing very deep, but we get in and we just sort of lie down. That's kind of the process. Any other folks who are practicing this who want to say something before we break and look at a few photographs? I know there are people who aren't part of our group that are doing this on their own as well. So please feel free to speak up if you have anything you'd like to share.
I'm happy to speak up. I'm Betsy Tabor, and I'm the minister of UFIS, the Unitarian Church in the middle of Tamworth. And a year ago, Margaret, who's here with us tonight, said, "I saw the craziest thing today." And she had seen some of the dippers. And I said, "Oh, that sounds like a service," because our services at UFIS go all kinds of different places. So, I invited Annie and Polly and Hope and another member of UFIS who's in Massachusetts, who loves to jump into the cold water. And we did have a whole Sunday service about this, which was presented as a spiritual practice. And I've been thinking about it ever since. And I live in Portsmouth. I serve UFIS 3/4 time, and so I'm back and forth. And I happen to live across the street from a saltwater estuary, a tidal estuary. So it's either 10 feet deep or it's mud. So I look out there and I think about it a little bit. And finally, in October of this year, I thought, just go out there. And so I went out there. It was October, so it wasn't such a big deal. And it was awesome. And I went out the next day and the next day. And it's turned into a thing, very solo. So I'm so interested in how social it is in Tamworth and the Tamworth area. But anyway, I go out there by myself. I got the booties, I got the gloves now, and it has become everything so many of you have said. I'll have to say that, to check your name, Denise, what you just said now about sort of being in the rhythm with the world. I am so aware of when the tide is up now, and of course that's all about the moon. And I got to this place pretty quick of kind of feeling like it was calling to me. And I would sort of be drawn, just drawn in my mind to it. And then I would go out and I keep coming out. Somebody said, "Giddy, just come out, feeling on top of the world and unaccountably cheerful." So I find it's like a mood reset. It's a mood lifter upper. Some of us need that. And somebody else said, "Trisha, it's little kid exciting." That's just what it is. That's just so perfect. So yeah, I'm grateful. I'm so grateful we did that service. I'm grateful that Margaret spoke up. And yeah, people think you're nuts. And every once in a while, I think, it could kill you, which of course you read about this. So I go out and I sing 3 verses to one of our hymns that everyone loves, which is called Wake Now My Senses and Hear the Earth Call. So I sing 3 verses and that's 90 seconds and that's good. And then I go back up the hill and come back inside. So thank you all. Thank you for leading the way.
Ed, you wanted to say something next?
Yeah, I'll just say I dip on my own, but and mostly behind the house where I live here in Tamworth. But it's great to hear everybody's thinking about it because you put into words things that I've experienced and felt and all that, but I could never put them into words as well as you all have. So thanks for pulling this together. Fun to hear of so many experiences here.
If anyone's looking for an easy place to dip, the boat launch at the south end of Silver Lake. You get there on East Shore Drive. The dam is there and water is flowing, not a swift current, but it's enough to keep it open. And I've been in there a couple of times recently, once alone because my schedule didn't match others, and once with a different friend. But open water, deep enough that you can walk out, waist or chest deep and just dip as deep as you want in terms of shoulder. You do have to wear, well, at least I feel I have to wear some kind of clothing there as opposed to many of our private spots.
Well, I think I'll share my screen and just share a brief little slideshow so you can get a little bit more of a vision of what it looks like and also feels like, and then a quick little movie that Annie put together last year. That's really quite wonderful. Let me see, here we go. This. Okay. Can you all see this? You see this?
Yes.
Okay, so here we are. This is on the left side is Annie on the first day that we dipped, being a little shocked by it. And then 6 months later, she's in a pond, and I don't know if you can tell, but there's ice on the pond, looking just as calm as can be. This was the beginning of winter in 2020, when we had invited some friends to come, and we had some different people join us. Denise is in there, Annie and Barb. This is later in the winter as it got much colder, and the only spots we could find were in the river. This was before it froze completely, and there were only tiny holes left, but this little hole we kept open, and it was sort of like our little slushy jacuzzi. As you can see on the left, I'm wearing some of my gear here. There's a hatchet attached to a pole that we would use to try to cut the ice, but it didn't really do much. And I've got my waders slung around my shoulders. Sometimes we'll put on waders when we're trying to break the ice. The other photos, one day Annie and I did a triathlon, which included skiing down the river with our skates on our backs, and then skating, we're behind the other store there, you can see, and then dipping behind the other store. And here we are, in that group with doing a little bit of dipping behind the other store, and all the observers who came to watch. And that was, I don't know if that was your first time, Hope. Maybe you had already dipped with Annie by that point, but that was a wonderful day. And this was our inaugural dip in Chicorowa Lake on the left, when we first invited people to join us this past fall, and a little bit later in the fall in the Swift River, just right outside or right in the village there. And another day in Chicorowa as summer turned to fall there. And here we are at Chicorowa, trying so hard to keep the ice open. You can see Anne on the left wearing her coat over her bathing suit. She had gotten there early to try to chop the ice, and we've got all kinds of implements. She's got a saw in her hand on the right side. We've got, I don't know all the things we use, but we tried our best for a little while to keep it open. On the left, this was just last week on the Swift River. You can see it's just beautiful. It was a cold day, but the sun was so warm. It felt like we were at the beach, and we had a little hole there that we all could go into, and it was just glorious. We did not want to get out. Well, we wanted to get out of the water. We didn't want to go in. It was so beautiful. And then another day over at Denise's house in her pond before it completely froze. And here are a couple pictures just showing the beautiful community nature of this. And here's beautiful Hope with the geese behind her.
That one's on Silver Lake.
Right. And there's Annie with Chicorowa in the background. This was the only one of the only spots that was open at that point, was right under the bridge. And I love this picture, and I love what it says to me is that, you know, even if you're dipping in a group, it is always an individual experience. You go into the water, you know, together, perhaps you come out and you are with each other afterwards. But when you are in that water by yourself, it is just you and the water. And that's one of the most beautiful things about it, is just that incredibly intimate relationship you have with yourself and with the water. And I will share one more thing with you all here. This is a little video Annie put together for fun last winter. Yeah, it's a pretty great little movie. So we'd love to answer any questions you have.
Looks like Trisha is hoping to have some kind of a contact, maybe.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. And I'll put my contact information in here so that anybody who would like to join us, please be in touch, because we all welcome everyone who is interested, even if you just want to try it, even if you just want to watch, even if you just want to like put your toes in, we'd love to have you join us.
You guys have a certain schedule or days of the week, or is it, you know, however the moon and the stars align?
It's a little bit of how the moon and the stars align, and a little bit of weather, and a little bit of, you know, we started out with a schedule, but then as things started freezing and we had to sort of figure out where we could go. And, you know, we used to do it first thing in the morning, and now we're finding a little bit later in the day when the sun is up is a little nicer. So we're pretty flexible at this point.
Who would have thought all these years? I mean, who would have thought you guys would have still kept doing this? How beautiful it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
I would just like to say that, like, in addition to all of the good things that we were talking about, some of us have experienced a relief from things like anxiety and like feeling, almost everybody's talked about how good you feel after you get out of the water. But sometimes you feel really good getting in the water, and sometimes you feel not so good getting in the water. And like even today, I was hanging out at my house, I was cooking, I was making stuff, and we had this plan to all get together at 1 o'clock. And it was 10 minutes of 1, and I just thought, oh my gosh, I've had a really rough week, a lot of stuff going on. I don't know if I can do it. And then I just thought, like, this is self-care. This is what self-care is about. And this is like, sometimes you just don't have it in you to get yourself cared for. And I think a lot of people feel that way. And for me, it's just one of those things that after I did, I just had to like flip that switch and sort of like surrender over to it. And like, I'm so glad I did, because all of those things that everybody talked about as far as feeling exuberant and really wonderful afterwards, like it just kind of all comes together. And not to mention the community of it all, but and then I got home, and all of the blood rushes to your core when you get into the water, and your fingers and your toes start to get really cold. And we wear neoprene gloves and booties, and so that we can stay in longer. And I love staying in a long time. And then when I was walking home from the river, like all of that blood that like rushed to my core starts heading back out to my arms and to my legs. And it's like this tingly, wonderful, wonderful feeling. And like Denise dubbed it the peppermint patty feeling. And it's just like, it's just so beautiful. And it's like an antidote to anxiety and depression and feeling blue. Depending on what you're, I don't know, whatever you're feeling, but I just speak personally. And especially today, it was just such a perfect level of self-care for me. So it does so much. It just does so much. I'm just so grateful. Yeah.
Have the luxury because I live right next to the river. I do have the luxury of just running down and dipping anytime. And I often, as Annie is saying, if I'm feeling something in my body or in my mind that I'm just having a hard time with, I just run down and jump in the river. And it's just like a total reset of my day, just a complete reset. Like it's like my body gets flooded with joy when I do it. And I mean, it's not that that I don't have other ways of processing things, but it is such a help to, and it's not just the cold water, it's making that decision to care for myself, getting outside into nature, and just observing and being aware. And all of those things together just speak so loudly and just do so much within my whole system.
Hey, Polly,
Mhm.
I can't claim to be an official dipper. I've only done it once, and I do it more. But it's just been a matter of my schedule has been bizarre. It's a fabulous thing. I was incredibly wimpy about the whole thought. Annie said to me, "Stay in until you can breathe normally," and that was, I pretty much almost got to that thing. I did call my doctor beforehand, just because I'm not 11 when I used to do this, and she said no. She said, if it kills you, it kills you. She said, there's nothing I can do about that in advance. She said, but you might want to check with a mental health professional. And I said, no, but what's key here is that, I love that, as pointed out, this has been done in northern climates, since the dawn of time, since before the Vikings came to Hampton Beach. And it's I love the fact that so much of this is centered in Tamworth. I mean, what a bizarre thing that is. This is the town where in the middle of winter, you can go out and get your milk and your yogurt and lettuce, outside at a farmer's market. This is the town where 36 to 48 people took off all their clothes to appear in calendars, mostly forced to do so by Annie. I wonder if there's a coincidence there or not. And now, we're going to have half the town, jumping into water wherever they can do it where there's not ice. It's just part of what makes this town such an absolutely delightful and bizarre place to be. And, all the people I've met who dip are wonderful people. So, I think that says something there too. So I'm just looking forward to adjusting the schedule so I can get a little bit more in before it gets too warm. God.
Yes, we'll work with you, George. Oh.
I have a few questions. First of all, thank you so much for presenting this tonight. I think I feel about cold water exposure the way I feel about sharks. I'm equally fascinated and completely terrified of it. But I'm curious, I could see a little bit in the pictures. I'm curious to know what you wear. It looks like some people wear bathing suits, others wear birthday suits. Are you concerned about hypothermia? Is that something that that you address in what you wear? And then how long do you actually dip for when you're in the water and you get out? Are you throwing a towel around you? Are you immediately getting into boots and pants and sweaters and all of that? So that was a lot, but if you can
No, those
answer
are
any of
all great questions, and I want other people to jump in as well. So yeah, there are a lot of cold water swimmers and dippers who do wear things to kind of take some of the chill off, but all of us kind of enjoy that, it seems. Sometimes we wear bathing suits, sometimes we don't. I think all of us wear booties, neoprene booties, and most of us wear neoprene gloves as well, because it's your hands and your feet that get the coldest. That's where the blood leaves the fastest. We set it up so that, you go down, we strip down right by the water before we get in. And when you get out, the most amazing thing is that you feel warm. You don't feel cold. And you just you should dry off, so you do, but it's not like, I gotta dry off and get my clothes on at all. You just feel so wonderful that you just kind of hang out and just slowly dry off and like, oh, I guess I should put some clothes on. And, but that's really not a big issue generally, is cold after you get out of the water. And, we've all done, or many of us have done, quite a bit of reading about doing this safely, and hypothermia is really not that much of a risk if you're not in that long. We are in, I don't know, we kind of stopped timing ourselves like way back in 2020, so I'm not sure how long we stay in, but maybe a couple minutes. I mean, at this time of year, it is pretty darn cold, you know, it's 32 degrees. So we might stay in a minute or 2 minutes. I don't know, maybe longer. I'm not even sure at this point how long we're in there. But like Annie was telling George, we stay in until our breath is calm. And I like to stay in, and we're all different, and everybody just does whatever feels right for them, and it could change day to day. But I like to stay in and just kind of observe what's happening in my body and what it feels like, and just allow myself to feel calm in the face of whatever my body, you know, whatever I'm feeling on my body. And if I felt like I was in danger, I would just hop right out. And if it at some points it feels like I gotta get out, I just do. But that's my experience. How about others? What do you want to share about that?
I've done, I think somebody had mentioned that the most challenging thing is not the water temperature, but the air temperature. And I find that completely true, that, so if it's, you know, in upper 20s or 30s, it feels fine. The lowest I've been, I think, is 12 degrees. I did one last winter and one this winter at 12 degrees. And that was pretty hard. And you do have to, I think, at those kinds of air temperatures, have to be thinking about getting warm after getting a hat on and a jacket on. I think that is important. Otherwise, I have, you know, in those temperatures, I hit definitely not right away. You get that warm feeling and all that, and as you're drying off, but then might be 10 or 15, 20 minutes later, you really feel deeply chilled and I can see hypothermia, and my hands don't work as well because they've lost their blood. They get cold really fast. So if you're out there and you're having to put, you know, tie laces and put boots on or whatever, and you're a ways from a car or something like that, if you're in the teens air temperatures, then you got to kind of plan it, or else it'll get pretty uncomfortable as you stagger your way back to your car.
Yeah, you have a window. You have a window in which to enjoy it, and then you've got to get your clothes on. Yeah, for sure.
One of the things we do, or Annie will bring a big bucket, and some of us have brought thermoses, is bring warm water and just pour it over our hands. But just, you know, we were taught, you know, you have to dry them right away. But that's a big help, you know, especially if you're trying to tie laces and stuff like that. So yeah, just good old thermos of warm water. So thanks.
Is it a problem to keep talking?
No.
I know I was supposed to go till 7:15. I just wanted to say two things. One is, yeah, the air temperature is the key, and the wind also is a game changer. And it's pretty prickly when you're drying off, when the temperatures are really cold. You almost feel like your skin has like a sheet of ice on it. But I did want to say that in our group last year, we had one person who got home and didn't remember where she had been. I don't know if you guys heard that story.
Yeah.
But so now we're super careful. Again, the whole listening to your body, if it feels any weird sensations, we're careful. And then we always text when we get home, you know, A, that we're okay, or B, you know, yeah, I had a cold hand or cold fingers. And I'm finding over the course of the winter, because we go most days, the after effects are, I mean, the beauty, the warmth is always great, but the lingering chill is surprisingly not a problem. And I just want to say, it's pretty cool to know that you can fall into any water now, right? You know that you're going to be okay, you know, and the fear is that gasp if you go under, so you know how to handle that and have that calm breathing afterwards, that we can be in any water now.
One thing we haven't done yet, we have a little, is we wanted to, along with a meditative quality, be silent in the water for a while. Today would have been a good day because there was like Denise said, oh, she has an orchestra. And there was a long line of icicles with different sounds of water dripping down. So this would have been a good day for that. But so hopefully soon we'll do some meditation in the water with silence.
I think one thing that I've learned too is to really respect and listen to my body. My body tells me how long to be in the water. Some days it's longer, some days it's shorter, and to really respect the environment. And I think sometimes we'll all be together and some people will choose not to go in because at that moment they just feel like either they're just not feeling the need, or their body is saying not today. And I think that's really important, to listen to the environment and to listen to your body and really respect all of that. And I think that's what keeps us safe and aware, and also, you know, checking with each other, caring for each other, and really being it's such a community, a collective environment when we're all there, where like Polly had said, it's an individual experience, but it's also a collective experience. And so we're really aware of each other too. A lot of respect.
Well, you guys make us proud. As somebody who can't imagine it, I can hardly take my clothes off in my freezing house. I'm impressed. Really cool.
And I have to say, I hate cold showers. I will not take a cold shower.
Definitely not. As hot as it can be.
Well, it's really inspiring to hear your stories, and it's really cool that there's become such a community of people gathering, and that you're so open to anyone else joining you. It's really wonderful. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Amy.
Yeah, we'll see you all next week. Let's talk about Tamworth, the Tamworth Outing Club.
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
I was thinking starting something like around.
Meeting.